If there's one thing I've noticed about dedicated shielders, it's that they don't really do much besides shielding. Don't get me wrong, protection is very important. It's one of the ways we manage our population after all. But aside from some elemental application, they don't really provide much utility in their base kits. For this episode of Signature Weapons, we'll be taking a look at some of my weapon concepts for Kirara, Layla, and Thoma, and hopefully bring something new to their abilities. As always, I'll just show you my usual disclaimers for the series, along with my personal rules and guidelines for making weapon concepts. Take a few seconds to pause if you need to. These will be in the description, as well as links and credits to music, so you can look there at any time. Alright, if you're ready, let's begin.
Okay, let's get going. The next location on my list is really far away.
Kirara is one of two sword user shielders. Her specific niche is being a dendro-based shielder. This can be very good in bloom-based teams to protect you from the dendro cores, but she has pretty inconsistent dendro application, meaning she's kind of a one-trick pony in her teams. Sure, she has some damage potential with her burst in C4, but as an HP scaler with attack scaling talents, those numbers are... What I found interesting is that none of her talents, passives, or constellations utilize an EM-based mechanic, which is what dendro is all about. So that's what this weapon aims to cover. Kirara's weapon is called Express Lane. It has a base attack of 454 and an HP substat of 55.1%. The passive, Door to Door, will increase the party's EM by 3 to 6 for every 1000 max HP the user has. This effect activates when casting their skill, and lasts for 4 seconds. If the user creates a shield, however, this timer will be paused until the shield expires. As I mentioned, Kirara is a dendro unit, which generally circulates around reactions. EM is very important for many of her team comps, so with this weapon she can contribute some damage potential in addition to shielding. This weapon helps her work as a 4-star alternative to Baizhu or Nahida. Baizhu has an A4 passive that increases the dendro reaction damage of characters, while Nahida provides up to 250 EM with her A1 passive. Kirara can now provide essentially the same bonus. Seeing how different their kits are, she can serve as a viable option based on what you need. Baizhu will still be the best healer, and Nahida will still have the best AoE application and damage, but Kirara can serve a purpose if a shielder is all you need. And of course, she can be run with either of them to further boost the damage of your team. Since her burst isn't that important, I chose to run the numbers on a Deepwood build with full HP substats. We can see that without any additional HP substats, Kirara provides around 260 EM to her entire party. Just to show you some examples of how much that boosts damage, here is Fischl's damage with Aggravate, and here's Kuki's Hyperbloom damage. It's a pretty big boost to their damage, and I believe it's a reasonable amount, since Kirara isn't used too much in place of other dendro units. I have additional calculations comparing her boost to Baizhu's burst. It's pretty comparable in terms of bonuses, so I consider this a pretty balanced number. And, just for fun, we can see what it looks like when you combine the bonuses. For alternative users, the only one that can really use this weapon is Layla. This is something that's focused on making a shield, which only she can do as a sword user. The only caveat is that this EM boost is only really useful in a melt comp. You can still use this as a stat stick for HP scalers like Kuki or Nilou, and they can still make use of the passive. It just won't have the timer pause due to their lack of shielding. That's all I have for Kirara's weapon. Let's move on to Thoma's.
Hey, how come you're eating here all alone? Is it okay if I join you?
Thoma's shield has an interesting mechanic compared to other shielders, in which his shield starts off weak and can consistently increase its HP through its burst, rather than having a higher base amount that lowers over time. As a result, I wanted to try a weapon idea that would focus on this fluctuation. Red Shield of Fate has a base attack of 510 and an HP substat of 41.3. It has a passive called Clean Sweep, which will boost the user's base burst damage when the user creates a shield. 20 to 40% of the shield's current HP will apply this damage bonus. Additionally, creating a shield will grant the user a stack of Sweeping Edge. At 3 stacks, they gain 3 to 6 energy, and will clear all the stacks. Both of these effects can trigger and will be retained while off-field. A shield's health is very dependent on a multitude of factors, the most common ones being how often they are hit, how much damage they take, and whether they are iframing any possible damage. Thoma's shield is no exception, but as I mentioned before, he is able to raise that HP, allowing him to maintain a specific value of shield health. He's also a unit that can make use of multiple burst hits, which makes his weapon viable for its personal damage. Here, we can see his damage using a Favonius Lance, and I chose this as a control because it's what people generally use on him. The next two columns look at his damage when you use the new weapon. The second column shows you his burst damage if you just use a skill, and the third column shows you his damage if you can somehow maximize the shield's health. Realistically speaking, his shield's health will stay somewhere in the middle, so the last column will show you his damage around that average range. Running him in a Vaporize or Melt comp becomes a bit more viable due to his damage being much higher, but his pyro application is slow, so it's not going to be boosted on every single hit of his burst. When it comes to the shield's health, you can see that the health will be slightly higher than a Favonius Lance. Keep in mind the difference between the talent scaling row and the percent bonus row. The percent bonus will take into account shield strength and show us how much theoretical damage the shield will block. But the talent scaling row is what we need to look at when we consider the damage bonus for the weapon passive. Now let's look at energy regeneration. Every time Thoma's burst hits are sent out, it'll generate a smaller shield, which will go towards the stacks. I want to say he'll get about 10 or 11 of those hits every rotation. His skill will also create a stack, and we have to remember that any stacks under 3 will remain in the second rotation. So at R5, we're looking at 3 to 4 rounds of energy gained, which equates to 18 or 24. As a bonus, his C4 grants 15 energy, making that new bonus 33 to 39 per rotation, and that likely means you won't need an ER Sans to get his burst back on cooldown. When it comes to alternative users, Zhongli will be our best contender, but while he has one of the strongest shields in the game, his burst damage happens in a single massive hit, not a wave of attacks. Also, he can only make a shield every 12 seconds, so getting stacks will take a very long time. Not like you need the energy regeneration though. If you're considering Candace or Yunjin because of their shield making capabilities, keep in mind that their shields will only last while holding the button, and as a result they won't get any damage bonuses. It can still work as a stat stick for any HP scaling units. That's all for Thoma's weapon. Last but not least is Layla. When Layla first released, one thing I noticed was that her personal damage was incredibly low, but she has a very high hit count when using her skill and burst at the same time. So instead of improving her personal damage with something as simple as an HP scaling damage bonus, I wanted to capitalize on her very frequent and fast hits. And I also decided to lean into a niche that's a bit more unconventional from your general supports. Layla's weapon, Secret Supporter, has a base attack of 454, an energy recharge substat of 61.3%, and the following passive, Nodding Off. Every time the user's elemental skill or burst hits opponents, all party members will gain 2 to 4% HP bonus. A stack may be gained every 0.2 seconds, even if off-field, with a maximum of 12 stacks. For every 3 seconds a stack is not gained, 3 will be lost. At max stacks, the following effects will occur. Every party member gains a 20% shield strength bonus, and every party member gains a 1% elemental damage bonus for their element for every 1000 of their max HP. HP scaling characters have become much more prevalent in today's roster. Hu Tao was the first who turned HP into attack, while characters like Yelan and Neuvillette are a couple examples of pure HP scalers. Layla's weapon effectively gives every character HP scaling on their damage, and for pure HP scalers, that gets boosted immensely. As mentioned before, Layla hits a lot with her skill and burst, and this allows her to not only maintain uptime on the weapon passive, but build up stacks very quickly. I'll be showing you 3 categories of characters. The first is Ganyu, who is a pure attack scaler. As we can see, she will gain a damage bonus as a result of Layla's weapon. It's a pretty small increase, but an increase nonetheless. Next up, here is a comparison of Dea's damage, which uses a dual scaling of HP and attack. I used an attack sans since her damage is slightly better with that main stat at C0. Here we can see her damage is much higher as a result. Finally, we have Yelan. As a pure HP scaler, she is in the category of characters who gets a very large bonus. Not only is her HP scaling in base damage, but her HP will now allow her to scale in damage percent bonuses, similarly to Furina. With this weapon, you want to run Layla on teams that have more HP scaling units since they'll make better use of the buff. For every HP DPS out there, Layla can be slotted in as a good fit. Hu Tao, Yelan, Neuvillette, Furina, and yes, even Dea. And the list of HP DPS units will just get bigger, so this weapon on Layla will only get more viable. You can also use this to boost the healing output of HP healers, but this weapon shines as a damage booster. Layla herself also gains an additional damage bonus just for stacking full HP. Compared to the Key of Kajni suit, we can see that her shield's protection is better due to the shield strength bonus, and her burst damage is better because of the damage bonus. The best users of this weapon are the HP scalers who can deal consistent skill or burst damage. This includes Kuki and Furina. Here we can see Furina's signature is still better due to the loss of crit damage, but it's still a very competitive option. Meanwhile, a few viable units will include Albedo, Xingqiu, and Ayato. They aren't HP scalers and may have better options than this weapon, but if you're only using them as a support in an HP scaling team, they can use the passive very well. That'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and subscribe to support the channel. Let me know in the comments what you liked about my ideas and what you consider changing. And let me know what kind of alternative weapon ideas you might have, or if there's a topic you want me to cover in a future video. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!